Hello, we're in a very echoey room.
We are in the largest room we've ever been in right now.
Have you ever been to Carlsbad Caverns? Because that's where we're recording this.
Started as a punishment, but we kind of like it.
What you just heard was a recording from our visit at the Breakfast Club before we recorded what you're about to hear. It's a little bit of the introductions and the song that they sing, which I don't know if it's legal to release that to the public, but you have it now, and now you're all members.
Yeah, and now you're all committing crimes by listening to it, so welcome aboard.
Yeah, I hope you like pirates, because you're all digital pirates at this point. Vasty, matey.
Scurvy. Did I do it?
ER scurvy.
I find that, I listen to their podcast, what I'll talk about. None of these things will equal what it's like to actually go to a Breakfast Club meeting. You get snippets of ideas of it, but you gotta go.
You gotta
go.
I said it in the interview, but the 2 times I've been there, you've been there 4 times. You've made that very clear.
Yes,
you have a life without me. I know. I get it. Since it's at 7 a.m. and it's so weird, and the things that are happening are so strange. Yeah. I'm not sure where in what reality I'm at during certain parts of this ceremony.
It is very dreamlike because you and I listen to so much Bill Haley and Ella Fitzgerald. So we walk in there's people and they're nice to us and they're giving us eggs and Ella Fitzgerald's playing. Maybe I should wake up now and go to the Breakfast Club.
Yeah, this isn't the life I lead. How did I get here?
And I'm in the room that I had my winter ball in, and nothing makes sense.
Yeah, Greg had his winter cotillion.
My winter formal in the Friendship Auditorium.
Yeah.
And I spend most of it in the kitchen with Edric Tam, so that's what I do.
As we do.
As one does in high school.
As is tradition at the winter cotillion to be in the kitchen with Edric. Someone's in the kitchen with Edric. All right, so we should preface this by saying that this was one of the field trips that we always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm,
and it's a place that we like so much, and they're always so nice to us, and they've been so cooperative with all of this. I can't promote them enough, this place. I think it's great.
I tell a lot of people about their podcast, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah, their podcast is Los Angeles Breakfast Club on the air. It's hosted by the 2 people we're going to talk to, which are
Phil Leirness and Lily Holleman. 2 perfect people.
Yes, two perfect people. Aside from us, 2 perfect people. Who'd have thought there could be 4 perfect people in this world?
And they're in one room at once, and magic happened.
The UN didn't try to stop this. Listen to that podcast.
Yeah, it's fantastic. He interviews some club members, and they give their stories, and then he'll play archival footage from other Breakfast Club meetings and stuff. It has the same feel as going to the meetings and stuff, and what they're all about, which is a club of friendship. Yeah.
Well, the Breakfast Club is not something a lot of people know about, so we won't say too much about what it is because they try to explain it best in the interview.
Yeah, they do better.
Also, follow them on Facebook, follow them on Twitter and Instagram at LA Breakfast Club, and go to their things.
Please.
Every Wednesday morning, you'll hear, but every Wednesday morning, they're there.
They're there. And they have great food in the morning, and I drink 8 cups of coffee because I get nervous when I'm around people.
Yeah, and it makes me nervous when you drink that much coffee.
And I am hopped up until at least 2:00, and then I just tank hard.
Meanwhile, I'm running to the bathroom right after this ceremony's over.
Big fan of those bathrooms, aren't you?
I do like the bathrooms. They have a huge industrial fan in the bathroom. It's great.
Some of my favorite days are when you come back politely and you sit down and you're like, I like the bathrooms here because, and you just list reasons. I'm like, okay, great.
Lysol smell.
There's lots of stalls. No one knows which one I'm in.
There's a Murphy bed in there. Also, we want to mention that since we recorded this a few weeks ago, the cat Fuzz Aldrin is doing very well. Yeah. Very healthy.
Do we say in the episode what happened?
Yeah, he pops out of a bag. You'll see. It'll all make sense. It'll all make sense in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, these Easter eggs will hatch. Do Easter eggs hatch? Probably not.
Yeah, they do. And they're filled with a reptile that got into the bird's nest, kicked the bird's eggs out, and had the bird raise its own babies. That's what these are. Also, at the end of the episode, because they have a lot of history, and we asked for some of their historical recordings from their archives, and they sent us a little compilation. So stick around after the interview to listen to that also. As for us, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
lameekly.tumblr.com, which is our home base. It has an archive of all our episodes. You see our posts and pictures for every...
Leave a review on iTunes, some stars or something like that.
Stars.
If you want to be the subject of a field trip episode or know someone who should be, send us an email, la.meekly@gmail.com.
We will answer any and several, but not all emails.
Anything else?
Hey, have a good time.
Hey, have a good time. Hey, good morning. It's time for the Breakfast Club. Don't you forget about me. And don't forget to listen to the rest of the podcast. All right, we're done. Bye.
You can't see, but I'm raising my fist in the air as I walk across the lawn.
We can see
it.
Want to start with the first
All
one?
right, here we go. Who are you and how long have you lived in L.A.?
Oh, well, my name is Lily Holleman, born Lillian Sillers Holleman.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in Los Angeles 13 years now, and that's the end of my answer.
Who am I and how long have I been in LA? None of your business and none of your business. That said,
40 years.
I am Phil Leirness, and I have been a hood ornament for Southern California since 1986. I was one of the lucky ones who escaped Silicon Valley by hot air balloon in the mid-'80s.
I want to mention that his reference hood ornament is actually in reference to the Griffith Observatory, which I didn't know for many, many years until the observatory came here and told us that was their nickname.
They don't know where here is yet. They haven't gotten to that question. But this is the point where we say, thank God for editing.
Where are we?
We are at the Los Angeles Breakfast Club, the democracy of ham and eggs, the shrine of friendship, which has been in Los Feliz since 1925. We are on the very land where the original clubhouse was built on the Breakfast Club stables. It used to be a horseback riding club. All the big businessmen of the 20s would ride their horses through Griffith Park, and they decided to have breakfast one Wednesday morning around the campfire. They enjoyed it so much, they got one of their friends to stand up and tell stories, and that inspired purchasing this land, making it stables, building the Garden of Friendship, the clubhouse. Maurice Dumond was the head of it. He spearheaded this whole thing, and we've been here ever since, sort of, with a few detours along the way.
Yeah, this is the fourth clubhouse, the third in Los Feliz, 3 different locations. For a brief period of time, the club relocated during the Depression before it was able to build a new clubhouse over on Los Feliz Boulevard, just on the Glendale side, and then came back here. But Lily did such a thorough job of explaining where we are that all I really have to add is that we are also conveniently located somewhere between the summit of man's knowledge and the pit of his fears.
That's from The Shining, right?
No, that's the Twilight Zone. That's the introduction to the Twilight Zone, the summit of man's knowledge and the pit of his fears, somewhere between there. And yet, I think it is an apt description of the Breakfast Club, because the Breakfast Club, if it did not exist in the real world, it would exist in some corner of the Twilight Zone, the most hospitable corner of the Twilight Zone.
From the 2 times I've been here, when some things happen, I'm not quite sure, like, am I still dreaming? Or is this is this just the most interesting place?
It has been described as a prairie home companion as directed by David Lynch.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I think so too. I love that description.
Although we have to change the name of that now.
Never. I never will. I'm a prairie head till death.
It's convenient that you reference the Twilight Zone because you guys meet at Twilight every Wednesday.
Ooh.
Like that.
Speaking of excellent segues.
We're here to talk about the Twilight Zone.
So what do you do here?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's hard to describe, really. Well, we expect you to get here at 7 a.m. sharp to put on a name tag.
Do you mean what does one do here, or what does she specifically do
I
here?
want to hear both.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the same time.
You get your buffet breakfast, which is delicious, and you find a seat next to a hospitable individual. You eat your breakfast, and then a series of rituals, which have been around since the 20s, very tongue-in-cheek, crazy kind of breakfast rituals involving a secret handshake that mimics flipping eggs, pledge allegiance, sing-alongs about ham and eggs. There's a cryptogram that we say. The club itself was kind of designed to make fun of clubs of the day. Mm-hmm. So it has a great kind of throwback sense of humor in its rituals. And what else do we do? Calisthenics?
Well, I think you come here, you meet people, you make friends, you have good conversation, you learn about the city in which we all live, you engage more deeply in your love of the city, you become more actively involved in the city, and all while never being allowed to take yourself seriously for a moment.
Yeah, so after our kind of set rituals every week, we have a different speaker or entertainer every week. This week we had the La Crescenta High School robotics team that brought in their robot. Next week we're going to have an author of a book called Eat Like Walt, and she's exploring the Walt Disney taste palette across the world.
It has been suggested to me by members, this is not a joke. I'll tell a joke to y'all later so you can tell the difference. It has been suggested to me by members that we follow up on the robotics presentation today, because they brought a robot, for crying out loud, that we bring back the mini therapy horse that visited us, and a winner-takes-all prize fight between the robot and the mini therapy horse. I mean, who would you bet? Would you bet that the therapy horse would win? Would you bet that the robot would win? Either way, the Breakfast Club wins. That's the important thing.
I was really disappointed. I asked them if they had an arch rival robotics team, and they were very kumbaya about it. Like, I was hoping it would be this, very intense, winner-takes-all kind of competitive edge with robotics.
I'm sure this won't make your podcast, but unless I'm mistaken, there was like a 13-year-old boy who expressed gratitude to this program for giving him something to dedicate his life to. He's dedicating his life to things at 13. I started asking that question at 40. What should I dedicate my life to? And it's the Breakfast Club.
I was hoping a rival robot was going to roll in when you asked that question.
And I had a human heart for some reason.
I mean, at least the Hollywood version, there would be arch rivals, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I think there's a movie in there.
One robot with bloodstains all over it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, the second part of your question is, what do I do?
Yeah.
I am the president and board chair of the Los Angeles Breakfast Club. Normally, those would be inhabited by 2 people, but I discovered the club in 2013, and it had dwindled to a handful of people. And so it was there was an emergency takeover that needed to happen.
Yeah.
They really weren't sure how to get the word out, how to get more people. I fell in love with what I described to you earlier with these crazy rituals and the live pianist, Don Snyder, who I didn't mention before, and this space, which is full of so much history, and you can feel old Hollywood here as we enact this kind of magical bubble of a time warp every morning. I remember leaving my first meeting just literally just head over heels. I was speechless. I was so thrilled to have found it, and as soon as
An adorable cat just popped its head out of a bag right now. The cat is literally out of the bag.
Yes. They immediately asked me to join the board, and I joined it, and I found out that they were soon to be closing their doors. They didn't really know how to carry on.
Yeah.
So I said, stop. People will love this. Let me get on social media. Let me get the word out. As soon as people who love this find out about this, it will be successful.
So they were considering ending it?
Oh, yeah.
That's horrible.
I know. They were so sad. It was awful.
If I may say something about what Lily does, and it's so appropriate that literally, yes, a cat came out of a bag at that point while she was talking. Our cat, Fuzz Aldrin, is with us and heard Mommy's voice and wanted to be with her. Fuzz has been very sick. Fuzz, we were being told by doctors a few weeks ago, needed to be put to sleep, that the prognosis was not good. But the thing about Lily is when she falls in love with something, no matter how much on life support it is, if she thinks that this thing deserves a chance to fight for survival, she is relentless and fierce and unflinching in her determination to give that object of her affection every chance to survive. She has done it with this cat, and this cat is well on her way to full recovery, and she did that with the club. I wanted to be of assistance to Lily as much as possible in terms of helping her with this club that she had fallen in love with. For a long time, wanting to do anything to be of service did not involve getting up at 7 in the morning and coming here, nor did it involve becoming a member. Because honestly, now I can say this, I was terrified of backing a losing cause.
Yeah.
I've backed enough losing causes. And sometimes we protect ourselves by not letting ourselves fall in love. Right? And so it took a while before finally I had come as a guest enough, and I just said, okay, I'm all in. So now I serve on the board of directors. I'm the vice president of the club's charitable foundation. We give out several dozen grants to local 501c3s each year. I also produce and host a monthly podcast that explores the history and happenings and colorful personalities that make up the Breakfast Club. It's a show called the Los Angeles Breakfast Club on the Air, and it's a throwback to when this club, for many decades, was a fixture on national radio. Live. Yeah, it was live on KFWB Motion Picture Radio. Ooh. And it was a 2.5 hour broadcast each week.
It was just the show broadcast?
It was the whole meeting broadcast. And
it's a microphone struggle.
I saw a cat paw reach out and try to take the
cat
microphone
wants
from me.
to say a few words.
And it is amazing because everything had to be timed out so perfectly in the mornings because they were on the radio. Yeah. So you think about things, rituals that we still do to this day, like the handshake line.
Yeah.
They had 500 people here, and they had to get that handshake line done during a commercial break.
Wow.
So they were really cracking a whip back then.
And just to name drop some 1920s personalities, the Warner Brothers are responsible for putting it on the radio. They donated the radio time because they love the club so much for it to be broadcast. There's still a radio booth, an old-fashioned radio booth in our space next to the stage.
Yeah.
The on-the-air sign still glows every morning. Anybody who is anybody would come here back in the day. Will Rogers was one of the original hecklers, which we call the Roosters, that still heckle every morning. We got Walt Disney came, Charlie Chaplin came by, Amelia Earhart was here, Mary Pickford, anyone who is anyone. Calvin Coolidge. That was the ghost. That was the ghost of Mary Pickford. It was like being mentioned.
It was the leaders in business, politics, and entertainment. Any name that you can think of as think of basically any park, beach, or street sign in Los Angeles that's named for someone. Like Doheny. Oh, I know him. He has a street named for him. Or Leo Carrillo. Right, I love his beach. But all these people, Sheriff Eugenio L. Biscalou, he was
Chevy
a member.
Chase Boulevard.
She's from Chevy Chase, Maryland. Interesting transition. It was really people, so many people also who would become major figures for founding industries that would shape the 20th century. But again, it all just started because they all shared this love of horseback riding, and they wanted a place to come together where they could just be friends and not worry about networking, not worry about business. So, of course, not coincidentally, it very quickly became the best place to network because you knew no one here was after anything from you.
Yeah.
They just were here to share camaraderie. And it continued for many, many decades. Lily found, one of my favorite stories is she found a photo from the 1960s of Ronald Reagan, who was then the sitting governor of California, being inducted as a member of the club. There he is, the governor of California, sitting on our old sawhorse ham with his hand in a plate of runny eggs, blindfolded. You saw the ritual today. It was exactly the same for him. The best part, though, is she found this photo on a website dedicated to exposing secret societies. Because to the conspiracy-minded author of this website, this photo was proof that the Breakfast Club, like the Bohemian Grove, is dedicated to figuring out how the next 100 years are going to go. You've been here. Yeah, that's exactly. You really got to watch out for the nurses at the table where you were sitting. Those ladies, they just got back from Davos, where they upstaged the president at the big billionaire conference.
Is this not a branch of the Illuminati?
You know, it actually is very specifically non-political and non-sectarian, which is such a perfect way to celebrate friendship, because aren't those just the two things that tend to get in the way of a pure friendship is politics and religion. And we're literally come here to celebrate friendship. To backtrack for a second on what Phil said when he refused to join in the beginning, I was perfectly happy to have this club to myself. I mean, if we could have just gone on with 13 people and me doing this every week, I would have been fine. It was like discovering the lost city of Leirness. It was my own personal secret every week. It was imperative that I bring in new people, and when I started to, I was a little disappointed, frankly, because I had to share.
What are you guys doing here?
But it's been fun, and we got Erin Petroulis over here.
Hi,
She's been in from the beginning. She saved the day, took over as our assistant. Yeah.
It's Dr. Jim Whitney's exercises that keep her looking so young.
We have one of our old-timer members leads us in calisthenics every morning, and I don't know if you got this on tape, but the wiggle waggle and the arm exercises are everything. That's how I keep toned. I don't know about you.
At what point was it how it is now in 1925, or was at what point did it become kind of what it is now?
The rituals are the same. It's a little more casual because if you listen to the old-fashioned radio clips, everybody was so formal in the way they spoke all the time. You just off the cuff, it sounded written. And they would pronounce Los Angeles, Los Angeles.
I heard that, yeah.
Yeah, they were very specific. They were honoring the Spanish roots of the city.
Well, I think those are major, major differences. It's almost not the same club anymore. It's interesting. If you had asked this question, I think a couple years ago, the answer might have been very different. It at some point, as I gather, maybe in the 1980s, especially as it then no longer was even on local radio, but still was quite a popular organization, it basically segged into becoming kind of a club for retirees.
Right.
And when it founded, of course, it was all people who were very active. And when we say people who were very active, by the way, we need to point out men who were very active, because no women were allowed until the early 80s.
Really?
Right?
Long?
Unless they were visiting. There were honorary members. She mentioned Mary Pickford and Amelia Earhart.
They wouldn't even
Are you feeding me these lines since you're not on microphone? Yeah, okay. But there would be plenty of events for the women, but the meetings themselves it was a men's only club, kind of a parallel to the Hollywood Women's Club, which actually predates the Los Angeles Breakfast Club. So until the early 80s, women were not allowed as members, and then lo and behold, a woman president comes along to save things. But we're not going to get political. So
I was waiting for it.
And so when Lily found it, it was still very much a club for retirees. But what is really interesting is as new members have come in and so many younger people have come in, it has become really age-wise such a diverse range.
Yeah.
And with many of the young members, so too has a connection to Hollywood and entertainment come back into the club, which I think has restored some of the feel of what the club was. There was also another way I realized that our piano player, who is one of only two piano players we've ever had in the 92-year history of the club. So you talk about job security, right? He replaced the original piano player. God. He was telling me a couple years ago how when the club was really thriving, one of the things that was great about it was that if a speaker ended up not being able to make it for whatever reason, they were never worried because they could always just go to someone in the audience and say, hey, will you come up and give a presentation about your work in blank?
Ask Charlie Chaplin if he wants to talk.
So we've had two occasions over the last few months where speakers could not attend, and we're going to need to be rescheduled, and we've been able to have members come up and give full presentations about really interesting topics.
That's pretty great.
One was Bernard Herrmann. He was not the member. He was the subject. Steve Smith,
my time frames were all mixed up.
good ham and egger. Steve Smith, a documentary filmmaker, he wrote a book about Bernard Herrmann, and so he gave a lecture and a presentation about Bernard Herrmann. And Sandy Hemmerlein gave a presentation at the beginning of this year on the history of the Rose Parade. So It's interesting that just a couple years ago we were reminiscing, or a year ago we were reminiscing about the good old days when you could just fill in with club members. Well, the good old days are back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, everyone that got introduced or like inducted today, their resume was like one person
Bob
worked-
Baker,
Bob
Marionette
Baker,
Theater was one.
Hanna-Barbera, someone worked
Yeah,
for
someone
Hanna-Barbera
worked for
or
Barbera.
something.
Yeah.
Everybody's
it's
interested.
a really, really diverse group of people in terms of where they come from and what they do.
Yeah.
And I love that it's not everybody in the entertainment industry, that I can talk to people who live quote unquote regular lives. Civilians, is that what they call them?
We wouldn't know.
I never understood that. Anyway.
You mean the little people? And I don't mean that pejoratively. You know what I mean. It's when you're on stage, you look out there and they look very small. And what's wonderful about it is that when you're on stage, the lights go down and they disappear.
Sure.
And then it's just us.
As Phil mentioned, he sits at the nurses' table. There's a group of nurses from Glendale Adventist. Adore talking to nurses. That is a completely different life from an actress in LA, and it's very soothing to me for some reason. I guess they're nurses. I guess that's the point.
That's their job.
Yeah.
Same hours as actresses, though. 14 hours on the clock.
Yes, exactly.
Here's a good one. What is this
boy.
place's role in the city?
Oh, this place's role in the city. Phil, you want to take this?
Historically, I would say the development of this club is inextricably linked with the development of the city as a major American city. You think about the fact that it was really the 1920s when Los Angeles started to emerge from the shadow of San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And this club was a major reason why. There was I found, and I'll be using some material from it on next month's podcast, but there was a newsreel that I found that showed some footage from the Breakfast Club. And even in that newsreel, they felt the need to call it the Hollywood Breakfast Club because Los Angeles wasn't impressive enough. And so it's inextricably linked with the development of the city. And I would say that for many years, the function that this club served was as the funny bone to the city of Los Angeles. It helped that so many of our leaders, so many of our leading figures would once a week be able to gather, be reminded not to take themselves seriously, to take the work that they have to do seriously, to take their responsibility seriously, but never themselves. And it was therefore a really important place where rivals and enemies could come together and utilize one of the Breakfast Club's tools, the buried hatchet. There's a wonderful photo we have of Harry Chandler, the publisher of the Los Angeles Times, shaking hands with William Randolph Hearst here at the club. And these men were not just rivals. Hearst, of course, publisher of the rival Herald Examiner. But they were not just rivals. They openly, actively, and expressly hated each other. And yet here at the Breakfast Club, they were moved to, again, bury that hatchet, shake hands, and smile and laugh with each other.
Insane.
And that is no small thing. We say that the club is not political, and it isn't in the sense that we don't get into discussions of policy. The tools that we actively use in the name of furthering friendship are tools that I do believe politicians might be well advised to learn, however.
I would like to say also, inspired by the Chandler-Hearst conversation, is so many people move to this town as strong individuals. And people are doing their own thing, they're forging their own paths, and that can lead to a feeling of isolation a lot, and a lot of desperation and separateness. And so this place is a place to come together, to be community, to ground us in LA as a place, which is actually rare in Los Angeles. If you think about it, there's not many opportunities to do that, especially in a non-political, non-religious way. So to have this gathering place once a week, this community, is everything, and everyone is welcome.
Community is so important, and it gives you the opportunity to deepen your roots to the city's present, to become actively involved in helping build the city's future, but also develop a real appreciation for the city's past. And at the same time, again, this word's non-political. At the same time, members are free to come in and share whatever they have going on in their life. And what they will find is that there is this group of people and their networks who are quick to step up to support in whatever matters to you. And it's a really kind of a beautiful wake-up call that so easily people are driven apart by quote-unquote political differences. But when a friend needs something, that might not be a thing that I would vote for, but if you as my friend need it, I'm there. And that it's a really powerful, heartening, inspiring thing to witness.
Especially in that we get all these speakers coming in who are involved in so many different aspects of the city. And so not only do you have the community, you get to learn about all these other communities and connect throughout the city.
Yeah. I think what drew us to it was just like the sensibility and the sense of humor and all that, which I can't think of many places other than this that are kind of like that. Have you been to the Old Town Music Hall in El Segundo?
Oh, is that with the organist?
Yeah.
I haven't been there yet. I've heard of it.
It's a similar sensibility, I think, to here. It's a lot of fun, but these are like the only two places I feel like in this city that
maybe the Bob Baker too.
Oh yeah.
Which is we have a huge representation from Bob Baker now. There's a huge crowd from there. We're linked forever.
But you are still the puppet master pulling the string. I want to go to the El Segundo. What is it? Music hall?
Yeah,
the music
hall. Music hall.
Want to go there because, as you know, I think it's so fascinating. El Segundo, which means the name of that town means the Segundo, and I think.
There's the joke.
You found it.
What's the most important thing here?
The most important thing here is hidden deep underground. There's a map with an X on it, and only Aaron holds the key. So I can't divulge what that is, but it may or may not be the heart of friendship.
The god of friendship was slain and his heart was buried.
Yes, I mean, we do make a yearly sacrifice, which is coming up.
For friendship.
In our underground lair.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult to put a finger on what is the most important thing. I would say that in interviewing members for the club's podcast, the thing that comes through again and again is that it's the people for all of them. You know, what brought them might have been a speaker, might have been what they fell in love with, might have been a ritual. It might have been our old 35 millimeter slides that are out of focus and askew. But if you want to sing old songs, you really need out of focus slides to do it. It might have been having their name mispronounced repeatedly by our master of ceremonies. But whatever it is that brings you or that you fall in love with, it's really the people that everybody keeps coming back for. So to me, I think the most important thing, if this is one thing, is to embrace the past of the Breakfast Club, the traditions of the Breakfast Club, to realize that nothing needs to be changed, that the opportunity is always in front of us to breathe new life into that history and those traditions, and that's what's really important, is how can I uniquely breathe new life into what doesn't need to be changed.
What is your personal favorite thing here?
The sing-alongs. Yeah. That is what sealed the deal for me when I first came. The fact that they are projected from an actual 35 millimeter slide projector, these vintage song lyric slides, which are adorable, and the pianist Don Snyder, who accompanies us, that's kind of the bee's knees.
Why does the name Don Snyder sound so familiar?
He's an international superstar.
That might be it.
Yeah.
I might have a shirt of him. Yeah, that might be it.
Yeah.
Does he also play at the place in El Segundo sometimes?
He might. I don't know.
I feel like I've seen his name on their programs.
I think you're thinking of a baseball player. A couple different ones. I think he's not a baseball player, but I think you're mixing a couple names up. But that's fine too.
I'm thinking of Don Pardo, I think.
Did you ever see an abridged version of The Music Man performed on a cruise ship? Because if so, you very well may have seen Don Don Snyder, playing Professor Harold Hill. He has been, while doing his work as the musical director of the Breakfast Club and the leader of the Don Snyder Orchestra, he has been a renowned cabaret performer and actor and musical comedy performer for decades.
I heard his episode, or I heard you interview him for the episode now. As I listen to more episodes, like it's starting to build everyone up as characters to me, and it's a lot of fun. They're not real to me. You're all characters.
The Don Snyder character.
Oh, what's my favorite thing? My favorite thing is the thing that I get to participate in less and less often because I'm dealing with other things, but it's the handshake line.
Oh, yeah.
Just the handshake line. I wish that there was more opportunity to interact with everyone on a weekly basis. That's why I love that there's been such an effort to put together Sunday night programs. Several times a year we do Encore Sundays where we bring some of the entertainers that visit the club to a nighttime audience for whom 7 a.m. on a Wednesday is just too early. Although I don't know why they don't just do what I do, which is just stay up. Just stay up,
And sleep all Thursday.
Sober up around 5 and roll on in. But and so I love that we're doing those. We also have a lot of member-only tours. This coming weekend, cool. There's a member-only tour of the Frank Lloyd Wright Ennis House. We started the year with the director of the El Pueblo de Los Angeles Cultural Monument giving us a tour of all the museums and behind the scenes down there at the Pueblo. So I love that we're getting to do all these things. But the reason that I love it more than anything is because once a week with these people is not enough for me.
Yeah.
So it gets back to wanting as much time as possible to savor with my friends.
What would LA be like without this place? Had it collapsed without you?
What would LA be? I don't think it would be here anymore. I think LA would have evaporated into thin air. I do think that this is the linchpin of Los Angeles. I just may have saved the city. I don't know.
We'll put that on record.
It would be a lot less fun, I'll tell you that much. Definitely. And it would house a very sad Lily Holleman if it weren't around.
She'd still come every 7 o'clock every Wednesday. There's no friendship.
Nothing. Exactly. Just me, myself, and Phil.
I love that movie.
How would Los Angeles be different? I get the feeling that Los Angeles might not even have Lily Holleman. I mean, I think, and maybe me. I mean, I think because we love to travel, take road trips throughout this country, America, for my money, still one of the top 10 countries in the world. And,
it's up there.
And we love it. We love traveling everywhere, and we fall in love with different places. And we do have the conversation of, I wonder what it would be like to live in this place. And but then after a few moments of silence, it's always, but the Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club isn't here; it's in Los Angeles, and it certainly would be different for us in that we might not be here. But I don't know yet. I think it would be very different for certainly the members that are here. It would be very different for the dozens of local charities that get help from the Breakfast Club each year, from the foundation, from the club's foundation. But I don't know yet if the city itself would notice much of a difference because we're still emerging from being perhaps Los Angeles' best kept secret at this point.
Well, this little corner of Los Angeles would be dampened because one of the things that I realized, we've done a couple of Wednesday mornings off-site at various restaurants, and then we go on a tour, and I always feel like I have failed in some way when that happens because I personally have this feel that the responsibility is to activate this magical bubble that happens every Wednesday from 7 to 9 at this specific location, interacting with the history that took place here. And there is something indescribable that happens that I don't even know what the ripples are across time and space, but it feels extraterrestrial and it feels important. And to dovetail, whatever that means, off of what Phil said, it has personally given me a feeling that Los Angeles is home. It creates a home for me. And I know it's hard for a lot of people to feel like LA is home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it probably felt that same way for back in the 30s and 40s for people also. So who knows if
the city of transplants. So I imagine
if Charlie Chaplin decided to just quit, who knows what the city
I
would
know.
have
I
been.
mean, really, in order to make me seem even more crazy than I am, the
By all
pull,
means.
the pull to save it, I really believe it is far beyond my grasp. I do believe that there are spirits that founded this club, that still inhabit this land, that really insisted, that really called me here. I just found a picture of Red Skelton performing at the club in the back of SAG-AFTRA magazine. I noticed that it was in Los Feliz. I looked it up. There was one tiny little website with very little information, but the pull for me to come here was so indescribably large that it had to have other deeper
the spirit of Red
implications, drawing me here.
I think it speaks to the importance of storytelling as a way of protecting and preserving our cultural heritage for future generations, to be able to draw inspiration and consolation and information from. And I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir because this is what you do with your show, but so much of history gets lost. And I made a documentary about consciousness and conspiracy called The Truth Is Out There, and so much of knowledge getting lost gets ascribed to being the result of intentional knowledge filtering, of paradigms at play where dark boardrooms of people are meeting and saying, okay, we've got to wipe this out of the history books so that people can't know about this. And maybe that happens. I don't know. But I do know firsthand from my experience with the Breakfast Club that a club that could have 500 members as recently as the 1970s could become not only forgotten, but so much of its history, a history that includes the most important people in this city, so much of its history could be lost. And why does that happen? Because people look at each other in this packed auditorium and say, hey, should we be preserving this? No, look around. Who's going to forget this? Cut to 9 people are left. Yeah. Preserving and documenting and sharing and in some cases repeating stories is really important because it's what keeps history alive, but it keeps history alive with a very unique tone. And that's something that storytellers understand, is that if you don't think in terms of the impact you're having in terms of time, like, I want to have that impact right now, but if you focus on the tone of the story you're telling, then the story you're telling has a chance to ambiate across the ages and preserve what you loved that inspired you to tell that story in the first place. Did that make sense, what I just said? I hope so.
No.
You'll edit it to make sense.
It's going to be 4 words at the end of it.
That is the speech that gets L.A. Meekley nominated for a Best Editing Award.
Nobel Peace
at
Prize.
next year's Potty Awards.
We're the first podcast to win an Oscar.
What's the strangest thing that's ever happened here?
Oh, the strangest thing. Okay. Tom LaBanche.
Period.
We can't speak to all the years we didn't know, but I think the fact that strange things happen often enough, even on our watch, lets us know that probably it's a history replete with strange things. Yeah. I think Tom LaBanche dropping in to basically correct a presenter on almost every fact. I won't talk about what the presentation was, but he just came in because, as he said to me, he's retired now. He was a longtime councilman for this district. We're now ably represented by David Ryu, who has spoken to the club and is a great friend of the club. But Tom LaBanche let me know that his wife said, I said, Tom, why are you here? He goes, my wife said if I don't start getting out of the house, she's going to leave me. So he came and he could not sit still, and pretty soon he just hijacked the presentation. And we were all glad that he did, because he is one of these guys that has forgotten more about the history of certainly this area and this city than most of us will ever learn, right? And then, apropos of the presentation being given, he let us know that he has keys to all the private gates on the walkways along the LA River. What? Do we want to go for a tour along the LA River, a walking tour? And everyone's going, yeah, when? He goes, look, right now. Right now. So It became a field trip afterwards
great.
along the river. So that's strange and delightful.
He carries the keys with him everywhere.
Yeah, I think we don't want him to fall into the wrong hands. We have a member named Kevin Jordan who goes nowhere without his dog Capra. And I'm not casting aspersions. I brought my cat. But we don't know if he's ever going to show up. We only know if he does, he's going to be late. And he's liable to be dressed as a horse, as a gorilla, as the Grim Reaper. We don't know. A really scary, dirty Santa Claus.
My favorite.
So that's always strange and in a way delightful. But I mean, Lily said, each and every week there is something straight out of a deep transcendental meditation of David Lynch that manifests in this club.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what would you say is the best kept secret here?
The best kept secret within the club, or the club in general being a best kept secret?
I was kind of thinking, because like the place itself is kind of the LA's best kept secret.
Yeah.
But is there anything
Sub-secrets.
Yeah, sub-secrets of the secrets.
Secrets of the secrets. They're out back. We have our own personal Grauman's Chinese footprints and signatures in this really mysterious fenced-off area. There are footprints and handprints and signatures from the 1930s.
Wow.
Really?
That we really don't know anything about, and it's a Breakfast Club mystery.
And we're here to solve it.
I think so.
We're going to take them all like Lucy.
What's the best time to come here?
The only time to come here is between 6:45 a.m. and 7:10 a.m. That is when we encourage you to arrive. Latecomers are welcome, but slightly
We'll be
frowned
prosecuted.
upon.
Yeah.
That's not exactly the definition of welcome.
You're welcome, but we don't like you.
No, I just don't recommend anybody coming later than 7:15 because, as you know, you'll miss so much of the magic.
Yeah.
So that is the time to come on Wednesday mornings. Any Wednesday morning except for the last two of the year. So,
Okay.
yeah.
What do you want me to add to that? I have no.
Say it again.
I don't know.
Where should you park to come here?
There is free parking, ample free
A lot
parking.
of free parking.
Mhm.
It's pretty nice.
What's the best place to eat here?
These questions aren't tailored to each place we visit.
we
The
asked
best place to eat here is at the buffet.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
At the dais table, because it means you are either our chaplain, a member of the board, the speaker, a chairman of the day, or our master of ceremonies, which means in order to get to sit at the dais table, your best bet is to become a member of the Breakfast Club. So come, fall in love with it, ask for an application, and become a member.
And the food is delicious.
It
We
is.
have
I
a
agree.
caterer. Her name's Gail Connell, and she has a company called Gourmet A Go Go.
I love that name.
And she's so steadfast, and it's delicious, and she's been devoted to us since the beginning. We're very lucky.
Well, that's all we've got.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you
was-
very much for having us
Yeah.
again. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We are two very shy boys, so people coming up and approaching us to introduce themselves is great. We really appreciate it.
I know,
And the club
it's
is fantastic.
Yeah, and when we started doing these interview things, this was top of our list.
Yeah.
Like, we want to go here to do this. So thanks for
Yeah.
letting us.
Well, thank you. We are fans of your show, and thank you for coming, and please come back.
We definitely will.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Thanks.
just casually. You don't have to have microphones.
Oh, we don't go
We
anywhere
don't,
without
I don't
these
know how
ones.
to not.
Well, you're welcome either way.
Well, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Quite pleased, we have a remarkable morning before us, and we ask your hearty cooperation. I'm young and healthy, and you have charms. It would really be a sin not to have you in my arms. I'm quite pleased. One of the regular fellows of the Breakfast Club and the vice president of the Breakfast Club, the man whom we all like, Ivan D. Parker, has as his personal guest a famous MGM star and his wife. At this time, we delight in presenting Mr. Clark Gable and his charming wife, Mrs. Gable. Right here.
I had to come to the Breakfast Club this morning to be called a ham. This isn't the first time, but everybody seems to have the lowdown on me now, so I give up.
Now, at this time, it is my delight and honor and privilege in your behalf to present to you His Excellency James Roth, Jr., the Governor of the great state of California.
Mr. Chairman, fellow members of the Los Angeles Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club has added to its name and to its fame by being host this morning to the Honorable Secretary of War and to the governors of the states of the Union who have come to California to hold their 25th annual conference.
And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our broadcast of the Breakfast Club for this morning. Brought to you over KFWB, Warner Brothers Motion Picture Studios in Hollywood, California.